Sara Hsu is the CEO of the research firm China Rising Capital Forecast. I spoke to her earlier, and she provided more details on how the virus is affecting countries around the world.
A lot of economists are projecting that China will experience a decline in its first quarter GDP, which also happened during the SARS outbreak. But, they don't really know exactly what's going to happen thereafter. And it really depends on the trajectory of the coronavirus. Right now, we see a slowdown in manufacturing due to manufacturing plants temporary closings, as well as, people staying indoors and not going out and shopping as much. So there's been a decline in retail expenditures. So, it's something that we're going to have to wait and see what's going to happen.
The WTO was already projecting anemic growth even before this outbreak. So give me your sense of best case scenario, worst case scenario.
Yeah, economists generally have projected that it could take, 0.1% off the quarterly GDP up to, several tenths of a percentage point. It's not really clear what exactly is going to happen. I would say it's unlikely that it would be more than 1% decline in growth. But, down the line, what's going to happen really depends on whether they can really get this under control, whether the virus stops spreading, whether people stop passing away from the virus, and so on.
And the areas where we can see a drop-off, I mean, if we were just to look objectively at what's happening now, I mean, Macau, the casinos are closed, but you're seeing sectors of the economy that are obviously going to take a hit globally: air travel, tourism, cruise lines, I would assume. Give me your sense of areas where, things might take it on the chin.
Yeah, so there are, lots of different types of effects. You can have direct effects like the slowdown in retail spending, slowdown in travel, and then you have more indirect effects like hits to the supply chain that affect other countries as well. So Japan has experienced some slowdown, deterioration in manufacturing, in part due to this virus, because China is a crucial part of many of its supply chains. And so we're seeing lots of ricochet effects all over the global economy. We've heard about effects in Latin America where there are fewer commodity exports from countries like Chile and Uruguay and Peru to China, and these are countries that are heavily dependent on commodity exports.
And you were talking about the global supply chain. I was reading not just Japan, but other Asian countries are going to be hit hard. We think about ASEAN. We see all the trade within the region. What's your sense about that?
Yeah, it's really going to be difficult because China is known as the processing center of Asia. It's really the main place where inputs come in and are processed, put together, and then re-exported out. So China is kind of like the stopping place for a lot of these different countries that supply inputs. And so that's really going to slow manufacturing for not just China, but for the whole region.
I want to also ask you about the Olympics in Tokyo, because a lot of people are starting to speculate, what about the Olympics? What's going to happen there? Now, we did see the Zika virus in Brazil. It did not prevent the Olympics from going on there. But what's your sense about that? I know it's still early.
It's still early. I don't know that it's necessarily going to affect the Olympics in Japan. There haven't been, China has really tried to isolate the virus from other countries, including Japan, although we have seen some cases in Japan. And so I think that most experts are hoping right now that the virus is going to be gone by that time. And certainly there are, world-class scientists who are working on a vaccine for the virus and other types of treatments. So people are generally hoping that it's going to die away before then.